Hey Paris, good to see you. How you doing today?
Good to see you too, Kayo. I'm very well. Thank you for having me here.
Oh, you're very welcome. How's your day been so far?
It's been pretty good. Busy morning, very chill afternoon. Looking forward to our conversation.
Me too, me too. Well, let the viewers know who you are, what you do, and why you do it, Paris.
My name is Peris Gichuk. I am a counseling psychologist based in Kenya. My focus basically is on prevention science in regards to mental health. So I usually work with individuals and organizations that are working to implement projects that help equip children and the youth with psychological skills and coping tools throughout life. Yeah, so that's just basically what we do. Also within the practice of my own, that's sort of the focus that I am leaning towards yeah, it's a pretty young company or rather organization, but that is our focus.
Excellent,
Yeah. Yeah.
excellent, excellent. So when you think back, Paris, to like before you got involved in what you're currently doing, what was your kind of mindset at the time when you were thinking this is actually what you want to do going forward? What was the trigger point that made you feel like this is what I'm going to go ahead with?
Oh, wow. That's a really, really good question. My trigger was I think going into life from uni, having been in school for, I think the rest of the better part of my childhood, all of my childhood, and the better part of my adulthood. That's basically the formative years of anybody, and just being sort of thrown to the wolves outside into the world, not necessarily having understood what happens into the world. You have the intellectual capacities, but not the emotional or the psychological capacities to go ahead and conquer life. So there were waves of emotional stress, dealing with work, trying to balance relationship, trying to balance friendships. And I think one of the things that some of my friends, we were just having a conversation, and it dawned on us that we lacked so much of the information when it comes to probably the how to handle our emotions and even our psychological well-being. So that sort of led me to think, okay, if I was, a school student, probably in primary school or in high school, what do I think I would need so much at the time? And I just thought, it's not a topic that is taught in school, psychology, as any other subject, probably like mathematics. So just having a simple program that lets helps kids, or equips them with psychological tools like conflict resolution, self-awareness, emotional intelligence, resilience, growth mindset, and so many other topics. And also the basic understanding of what is mental health. How does it affect us, Like I think one of the things that I've come to understand is that throughout life, before you even get to proper aspect of where you can go for therapy by yourself, you've probably gone through so much things. Say, for example, grief, and as a child, you're not equipped with the tools, the psychological tools to properly, uh, ac- or rather process this grief. So those are some of the topics I would say we're leaning towards. I think it's much more than that because it also leans towards substance abuse, how that is related with families, and trauma, family trauma, how parenting styles affect children. What can we do? So just incorporating those basic bits of society, whether it's the policymakers, leaders, or the parents in the society and children themselves. So that's sort of the focus. And that's where I started. What I need, what I would have, needed if I was in the same that position back then. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. So essentially, a way of giving back, so to speak. Like, and oftentimes when people get involved in things like counseling, they themselves have to overcome some challenges. Now, you mentioned having to balance relationships and friendships and things like that. And when you look at your own situation, what kind of things did you have to overcome personally to get to where you are now?
I think the most noticeable thing for me was a basic understanding of myself, self-awareness. And that with that understanding, it informed a lot of the things that I had to do. Because I think initially I was just going about into the world without the understanding of who I am as a person. I did know who I am from, where I'm coming from. But as you grow up, a lot of things change because you find yourself in different situations or experiences that change you as a person. And I had not sat down and properly understood who I am as a person and how do I handle things? How do I handle conflict resolution? How do I go about, my friendships? What do I need in friendships? So I had to overcome that because I usually found myself relating with people that were not necessarily good for me in an emotional capacity, rather. They were not feeding me in that sense. There was obviously everybody has, their good side or their bad side, but there are people who are better aligned for you in friendships or in different aspects of your life. And that even comes to relationships. There's a good guy here, but he's not necessarily good for you, you get. So that basic understanding that put me in very, conflicting situations where I felt like I have to give up this person because I feel like they're not good for me and not serving me in the aspects that I would need, and they're not feeding me. But then they're really, really good people. So it felt like, oh my God, am I giving up on a really good person? Also just learning to place people in different facets of my life that they need to be, you get. Yeah, so I would say that was one of the biggest thing I overcame.
Yeah, for sure. Us knowing exactly who we are is very much a factor in like the kind of people we engage with. If we're not sure about who we are, we're kind of like going with anything. But like you said, like it doesn't mean that the person is not a bad person. Maybe they're just not a good fit for the kind of person you are, which is very true. So like, once you start to find out like who you are and things like that, how did that affect your relationships going forward? Like even intimate relationships, like would you say in the past there was any issues that you have when you didn't understand exactly who you are, and how did that change when you started to discover yourself more?
Wow, okay. I'll probably say I have been in sort of a very prolonged period of being single in the search of trying to understand what really works for me. I think I have found it, or rather a bit of it. I can't necessarily say that I'm 100% there, but what prompted me to take that journey was in introspect on my previous relationships. They were not the best. Not to say I did have very good people in my life, they're still in my life, but we were not the best in the aspect of, specifically, I would say, conflict resolution. I am more of, let's talk about it right now, let's figure it out. And there are bits of me that are like, I don't want to talk about it, I don't want to talk about it right now. So just that understanding of how do I resolve conflicts, that was, I think, one of the biggest issues. And I was also being in relationships with people who did not understand that. So we were not in alignment in that way. So there was a lot of conflicting spaces that did not need to happen at the time, you get. Yeah. So that's one thing I figured was more of an issue that it needed to be. Yeah.
Right, right, right. So looking back now, what would you say were some of the root causes of some of those conflicts?
Wow. Okay. I think some of the root causes is we as human beings, we come from different backgrounds. We have different childhoods, and how probably your parent parented you or their parenting style affected how you relate with other people, you get. So if you're raised in a home that you were not able to talk about your feelings and would rather have been in self-regulation because it was an explosive space, where you can talk to your mom because she's either going to tell you you're being disrespectful or something, you're going to be dismissed either way, you get. And in spaces where kids are avoidant because they don't have the safe spaces with their parents that are encouraging them to talk about their feelings, to talk about what is going on with them, you get. So I think for me, I had to do a lot of self-regulation before there was a space for me to talk about this is what I'm feeling and this is I still do struggle with that. Vulnerability is a huge issue for me. I'm working through it through therapy, of course, but that understanding that that is a problem instead of just going back into my shell, sitting down with my partner and talking about this and this is going on, as much as it's uncomfortable, because it's very, very uncomfortable for anybody who has issues with being vulnerable. Yeah, I would say that my being raised and some of the societal experiences that you go through. I did not go through bullying, but bullying can be one of those issues, one of those, aspects of life that changes how somebody will handle things as a grown-up, because in your formative years, your brain takes in a lot, your, neuropaths form, and it's a lot harder to change things as a grown-up than it is as a child. So as easily as you can change them is the same way they are easily formed. Yeah. So that would be one of the aspects I would say. Mine was self-regulation. I am not able to properly express my vulnerability without feeling like I am setting myself up to be a target for, something else in the future of some sort. And hence, I'm not able to talk about how I'm feeling with my partner. And that trickles down into passive aggressiveness, because if you're not able to express your feelings, but you still have them, then you become passive aggressive, you become distant, you become emotionally unavailable, then they feel neglected, then it's downhill from there. Yeah.
Right, right. So, in your opinion, then, would you say that it's better or easier when people come from similar backgrounds because of those differences that tend to cause those frictions? Do you feel like it's just better in general for people to get together that are coming from similar backgrounds?
I believe there's a reason why matchmakers exist and their businesses are booming, because they look at those aspects. When you talk about relationships as a grown-up, it's not just how you feel about the person. You're marrying their family, you're interlocking with their friendships, the characters, your characteristics, if they're not, of course, there are those people who beat the odds and they're very different, but it's not a difference it's whether those two characteristics or your aspects of life are complementary to each other. They don't have to align similarly. Like, I like football, you like football. No, do those characteristics, like you are an introvert or you are an ambivert, introverted, extroverted, and this other person is an extrovert and is serving an aspect of you that you have wanted to get out of your shell for a bit of time, and now this person is encouraging that part of you, and that is a complementary aspect of it. So yeah, I would say yes to some degree, that there are people who are better aligned because they come from similar backgrounds, even say with socio-economical backgrounds, for example. Like, people who come from a higher socio-economical background have a different understanding on different approaches when it comes to social interactions, right? And that could be like, say, connections, creating connections, creating a networking. They are brought up with the same philosophies. So they are better suited to understand each other when they go out, that this person is not talking to this other person because they want them. This is just a networking aspect or some sort of creation of, connection for a business deal or something else that could come later. Yeah. So I think yes, to some degree, but there are those people who beat the odds and they come from very different backgrounds or aspects of life, but make it work. But generally, yes. Yeah, I would say yes.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Now, one thing that does like tend to cause issues in people's relationships and even go as far as affect people's mental health as well is when there are certain expectations within relationships, right? And some people say that expectations are very normal. It's good to have them, so you know what direction the relationship is going in. And some people say that well, it kind of puts you in a box and it doesn't allow you to express your true self and allow you to be free. So, in that context, what is your viewpoint on people that have expectations within relationships?
I mean, I would say expectation, as you said, they're good because they're there because, we need different things from different people. Now, the issue comes with when people meet and forming relationship is a process, which is one of the things that we have not been doing as probably the younger generation, because it takes grace, it takes patience, it takes forgiveness, and it takes time, of which now we are used to immediate gratifications. So you want to meet somebody today, and tomorrow this is your person, yeah. So in that aspect, you miss a good period of time of some forming some sort of a basis for whatever is going to happen in the future. There's no friendship, there's no understanding of what values this person has. No, you don't understand their morals, you also don't understand their background, you don't understand their conflict resolution, you don't understand what they need. Hence now the expectations come in, yeah, because you should be able to talk about this is what I expect, or rather not necessarily putting them like this is exactly what I expect. But if it comes to probably, emotional nourishment, I would like to receive attention, even unspoken as well. When there is that basis, you'll be able to tell, oh, she likes attention, she likes being complimented, she likes X, Y, and Z. And then you form a good aspect of communication where it's safe and you feel safer to be like, hey, today I need an extra, a bit of attention because I'm going through X, Y, and Z. So expectations should be aligned with communication. And communication can only happen when there's a good foundation for that. So forming a good foundation in relationships initially, you know, doesn't mean you're not attracted to each other, doesn't mean you don't want to be with each other. It just means taking a little bit of time to see if this person is for you or not. Because, when you meet somebody and within that period of time where oxytocin is so high and testosterone and estrogen, there's just like so much attraction at the time and you feel like, oh my god, this is the one, my soulmate. But then you don't know who this person actually is. You're just driven by your physical attraction hormones that are taking over, and then a month later you can't tell where it all went wrong. But it went wrong where you didn't take time, yeah, you were not patient. So yeah, to answer your question, yes, expectations are good, but they have to be aligned with a good foundation of friendship and a really good space for communication of either gender or whatever partnership it is. There has to be a good communication for that because expectations change. Today I need this, tomorrow I probably don't need that much attention. And just being able to express that, hey, today I just need a little bit of space to myself, then if your partner, there's a good basis of friendship and your partner can properly understand that, they'll give you that. Yeah.
Right, right, right. So essentially, a good foundation of understanding before having any expectations. Otherwise, those expectations are likely to be disappointed. Would that be correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. And unfortunately, in today's world, we have expectations that are not being communicated. You're giving people ultimatums without telling them. If he doesn't behave like this within the next 3 days, I'm blocking him. He doesn't even know what he's supposed to do. Like, he's not a mind reader or she's not a mind reader. They are not a mind reader. It's not something you can tell, when you're just seated and thinking about he didn't tell me I'm pretty today, and he has been telling me I'm pretty every other day. Maybe the other person is occupied with other things that are going on in their life. So, which is the unfortunate bit about, today's world, there's that expectation of you to be angels, to be mind readers, which is unrealistic, to be honest.
Right,
Yeah.
for sure. People are definitely not mind readers, therefore communication is definitely key. Yeah, so
Yeah.
another aspect that does affect people's relationships and even how they view themselves is when they look at gender roles, right? So, like for example, traditionally, one person tends to lead in a relationship and the other person chooses to follow. Some people say that's very natural, that's the natural order, and that's the way it should be. And some people feel like, well, that's a social construct. We all like individuals and we're all free and we should be complementing each other rather than having these gender roles. So, with that being said, what is your viewpoint on gender roles within relationships?
I think it's all about, it's a matter of communication and, as you said, understanding. If that works for one relationship, it doesn't have to work for the other. Because I think it has, as much as people do say that this is something that used to happen, there were different aspects. When you look at in the African settings, women have always been going out to look for what to feed their children, but also serving the submissive part. There are people who have also been in spaces where the man is left at home and taking care of the children. And this is not just it's not a bit of modernization really, because it used to happen. I have seen it, I saw it growing up. So it's what works for the two of you. As we say, it's a partnership, you and your partner, not what the rest of the world think. Because the rest of the world will always think a lot of things. And the unfortunate bit is they'll think today this and tomorrow it will be something else. The other day it's gonna be something else. So if you let your relationship be defined by what is happening around you, that they're saying, oh, you should bow to me when I get into the house, you should wash my feet when I get into the house, and that is not the basis of your relationship, then your relationship is bound to crumble, because that is not what you started with. Those were not the basis of your communication. They were not the basis, they were not the foundation. But if that was the foundation, and your wife is to be submissive, it's a choice, as long as it's a choice not being forced, then well and good, you get. So I think we cannot put people in bounds, or rather relationship in bounds, and because that's first of all going to be very limiting in how do we progress as humans, in society as well. Where do we go in regards to human development, you get? So we cannot put, I personally, I'm not in a space to put limiting aspects of that the traditional way is the best or modernization is the best, where everybody is working. There is not, the traditional aspect. I say, if this is what works for this couple, I cannot push it to another couple, because the concept is just understanding what works for that partnership, because it's a partnership. Yeah.
For sure, for sure. And speaking about limiting aspects, some people, are used to like a certain type of a relationship, like so, for example, monogamy. But they might find that like they have attraction to different people, or like they want to explore different things, but they
Right.
feel limited because of their current relationship style. So they start to look at other styles, such as non-monogamy and things like that. But they don't know exactly how to communicate this to their partner, because they don't want to disrupt what they've had, but they do have these feelings about non-monogamous relationships. So, first of all, what is your viewpoint on non-monogamy and versus monogamy, and how can someone that is wanting to explore a non-monogamous relationship communicate this to their partner?
I think with non-monogamy and, monogamy, it's more about who you are as a person, you know, and what you think works for you. Personally, I cannot be in a non-monogamy relationship because I am a bit possessive. I want my person to myself, you get. And there are other people who are like, love is love, let's explore. Even together as a couple, they're like, we're in an open relationship. This is something we mutually agreed. But for people who feel like this is something they want to explore, the question becomes is, what is more important in that aspect? You first of all have to agree, because is this relationship more important than how you're feeling. Because in relationships, compromise is and sacrifices are just embedded in it. There's absolutely no way to separate the two from as any sort of relationship. Yeah. So what I would ask is this something that you think is more important? Do you feel like you're shrinking yourself a little bit more to fit into the monogamy aspect if you want to explore non-monogamy? And if you feel you're compromising yourself, you ask the next question is, do you think your partner would be in the space to accommodate this? Is it something you can try? Because it's not an attack on your partner. It's not an attack on who they are. You get it's just more of an expansion of who that other person is as a person. They started as monogamy. This is what they wanted now. There is some sort of development because we are growing, we're experiencing different things, and those experiences make us different people. So just understanding that this is not an attack on this other person, not it doesn't mean you don't love them. Now, the other aspect is if your partner is not able to understand this or they're not okay with this, are you willing to let them go? And not string them along or do things on the side that will result into a breakage of trust or bond, you get? So if this is a conversation you can have and be okay with the decision that your partner makes that no, I hear you and you can be that, but I'm not okay with being in that space. So you have to just let it go. You can't have your cake and eat it in that space, you get? But if your partner is open to exploring that, then good for you. So you explore together or separately in whichever understanding you will have as that partnership. But the whole aspect is just you have to really, really understand whether it's for you. Do you really want it? Is it something that is coming from you, or is it just something that is a result of influence? Because if it's a result of influence, then you're going to regret. You start blaming your friends that you told me, oh, you're in an open relationship and it was really good for you. And now I've lost someone I've been for years because I wanted to be in that space, because some of us do things. Human beings are very impressionable, which is unfortunate, yeah. So it may not even be a space where you think that I want to do things because of me, because I'm feeling attracted to maybe other people, because I feel like I want to be given so much other love. It could be because your body is doing it and you feel, oh wow, this seems like a better deal than what I have, which is very confusing because what is the definition of a better deal, really? A definition of a better deal is this in this space that you're in, is it working for you? Has it been good for you? Do you feel like you have been given everything that you have needed? Or rather, not everything, but most of what you have needed? Yeah.
So essentially, like being completely honest with yourself and completely honest with your partner, regardless of the outcome, in order to let the truth be on the table, so to speak.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it really begins with yourself. You cannot be honest with someone else if you're not honest with yourself.
Excellent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent. So you mentioned you yourself being a possessive person, and a lot of times when people feel possessive, they can get jealous about certain things as well. Now, when we look at jealousy, it can happen in a monogamous or a non-monogamous relationship. For example, in a monogamous relationship, it could be, oh, I noticed that you're spending more time with this person. In a non-monogamous relationship, it could be you're spending more time with this partner than you are with me. So when somebody is, going through these emotions of jealousy, how can they start to deal with those emotions, and how could their partner also let them know that there's nothing to be jealous about?
I think the understanding I would say, let me personalize it a little bit, yeah.
Please
I
do.
would say, yeah, for me, I do feel or have felt like this is my person, and uh innately human beings are selfish from when we're born. We really want things to ourselves, which has even brought the concept of identity. I. identifying myself, we're not in the space of we sharing. This is the sharing is caring is sort of being pushed, but it's not intrinsic. It's not something that is within you when you're born. It's something you develop over time. So I would say I have come to understand that love, loving somebody really involves a certain amount of detachment, you know, detaching from who they are and some sort of identity or whatever umbrella you have put them under. There are people who date people because of a career, like I'm dating a doctor. So if they lose that, then who are you dating? And at the human beings at the time, did you know who they were, besides them just being a doctor? So I think for me, it's the understanding that loving somebody involves a little bit of detachment or a good amount, not even a little bit, a good amount of detachment from you know, what they're doing, because they are their own person. And also, I am my own person. I need to be able to explore things outside of that person. And something I would say is more involved with jealousy is lack of attention. So if you're able to communicate that I need a little bit more attention than, you're normally giving, and that if that partner respects you enough to understand that, okay, I see that I've probably been preoccupied with work or my friends or maybe this other hobby they have and can give you that essentially decimates the whole concept of jealous because you're no longer jealous at the time because you're receiving what you're needing. I think jealousy comes with not getting what you are needing at the time, not rather possessing them in person or rather like physically. It comes from a lack point. So you have to ask yourself, what am I doing as a person or as myself to give myself what I think I need? If it's self-care, are you doing things for yourself? Because when we lack, it comes, it's from a point of I don't have, like your cup is depleting, right? So if you're able to give to yourself, then your partner can add on to whatever amount they can or even more. But if you're dependent on this particular person to fill your cup every time, then it's going to be a problem because you're going to be depleting this other person. And then it's going to essentially cause problems in the long run. And now I think with non-monogamy, it's more of with probably a few couples that I've interacted with, they have rules of engagement. You get. So they say we have to go on X number of dates this week. And if you're seeing this other person, then you go do it probably far away. So if that it's more of just mutual respect there. Yeah. And also being able to communicate that I feel like I'm lacking X, Y, and Z here, which also comes down to mutual respect. Is this person hearing you? Do they feel like they're just complaining or that they are really, really hearing what you're saying and wanting to give you that? But also, essentially, are you giving yourself what you need? Not just expecting the other person to give you what you need. Are you giving yourself what you need? Are you nourishing yourself? Yeah. So,
So,
yeah, that would be it.
fantastic, yeah, and also like a lot of time jealousy does come from a sense of lack, like you mentioned, but sometimes there is some truth to why someone is feeling jealous. Sometimes there's been infidelity in a relationship, right, where the trust has been broken. So
Mhm.
when that happens, some people say like, okay, if you've cheated on me, it's over. There's no going back from that. And some people say that like, oh, we can actually communicate about what has happened and get past this so we can move forward. So with that being said, what is your viewpoint on forgiveness after infidelity in a relationship? Do you feel like the relationship can get back to where it was, or do you feel like there will always be a problem because of what happened?
I would say that that is on a very individualistic level, you get. If coming into relationships, you have to have your non-negotiables, or they're just there. You have your non-negotiables. And infidelity can be one of those. And in that aspect, there are people who are not really able to move forward from that point because maybe for them building trust was a very big issue, and it was something that was communicated, and this was became a point of disrespect, as people. It was not a mistake in that aspect, it was disrespect. That's how they interpret it, because I communicated that this is a non-negotiable for me. From the beginning, I told you this is a non-negotiable. And we all have impulses as human beings, that's for sure. And then it comes to, if I did not do this to you, how were you able to do this to me? That sort of thing. So if that's a non-negotiable to anybody, it's beyond anybody, even as a therapist, to try and convince them that it shouldn't be a non-negotiable, because that's a boundary. Boundaries are very important. How you keep your own boundaries and you respect your own boundaries essentially translates to your love to yourself and your self-worth and all that stuff, self-esteem, the building of that. So if this was a boundary that was communicated and crossed, then you absolutely cannot tell that person that, no, it's forgivable. Absolutely, you can say that, yeah. But for people who have different non-negotiables, that infidelity is not something. There are, us sometimes women, we understand that, or we say we don't understand. Point of correction. Some say that men cheat, they are inherently non-monogamous, and hence when it happens, it's just a matter of, can you just do it far away from me and don't bring it to my face, yeah? And in that case, to each their own. If you're able to forgive, then forgive. I think one of the issues that people have is shouting at the top of their lungs that this person is doing this to me while also being with them, you know. And
Excellent.
yeah, if it's a point of self-respect and you feel disrespected and you feel like you're not okay in that space, and essentially also staying in that space, it shows people, you show people how to treat you. You teach people how to love you. And if that's the level of love you have for yourself, what makes you think people are gonna give you more? They'll even give you less than that, you get. So yeah, sometimes it even trickles down to people feeling like they cannot find better, or they're not lovable, and this other person is doing them a huge favor by being with them, so they can essentially do whatever they want on the side, but he still comes back home to me.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Paris, unfortunately, we've run out of time. It's been so wonderful speaking with you. Thank you for everything that you shared, and thank you for all of your insights. And for the viewers, Paris is also with us on Mates Coach, so you can find the link to her Mates Coach profile in the description, and also the link to her socials. Now, Paris, very briefly, any final words before we wrap up?
And I would say let's love ourselves. Just
Excellent.
let's love ourselves. Let's strive to understand ourselves so that we can love ourselves better, so that we can be loved better.
Thank you so
That
much, Paris. Thank you
Yeah.
so
Thank you
much.
for having me. Bye
Very
bye.
welcome.